So this one is for Claudia in Germany, who actually asks, how do you do things in spontaneity when you're an actor? How do you do crying, for instance? Do you have to think of somebody, that's ill or died in your family, etc.? Well, it's interesting. There's kind of a dichotomy of interest there, really. It wouldn't be spontaneous if I had to think about it, would it? But the other thing would be, yes, you do actually have to do that technically as an actor. A lot of the time when you start acting, the techniques give you certain things like, you're sad for something and it's an emotional scene, and you substitute the person that you're crying about on camera for something or someone that was dear to you. Some people use their dog, some people use their pet fish, their cat, their mother or their sister, whoever it is. And that becomes a technique. A lot of the time, though, what I've found, and that's kind of how I started, when I was younger, but what I find with that technique is that what happens is, unless you have several substitutes, it doesn't work every time. Because once you've kind of released that for that emotion, you get blocked. So a lot of the time, I create characters, and the emotion and the angst of what it is, you have to really kind of work off of who is in front of you, and a lot of the time that emotion will come spontaneously, because crying is not interesting. Crying is not interesting. The emotion of crying is interesting. By that I mean, if I'm feeling sad and I'm trying to hold it back, it's much more emotional than it is if I just start crying, because you realize the pain that person's feeling and the thing that they're going through, and that really affects an audience. Now, I have seen recently a couple of shows where it seems that every bloody scene they're crying, everybody's seeing they're emotional. I'm like, okay, already, choose something else, because everybody's doing the same thing. So you got to find some other thing that pushes forward. 'Cause you can't do it because it gets numb on the audience after that. So the techniques are there for actors to learn that, and but sometimes I find that you have to have a variety of techniques or a variety of intentions that allow you to get to that space. When I did Highlander the Source, I know it wasn't everybody's favorite film and wasn't my favorite film, certainly, but when Joe died, I didn't need anything. I needed nothing. I was just bawling because, he was like my dad, and Jim, he was like my dad. It was, I'd lost my father a few years before. And so it wasn't very hard to see Jim Burns on the floor, knowing this was the last time I was going to work with him, knowing that, he was an elderly man and he reminded me of my dad in a certain way. That emotion immediately came through, and there was no acting involved. So sometimes it happens very spontaneously for you. So hopefully that helps. See you, Claudia.